Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. President Trump highlights economic wins in a primetime address, teases sweeping housing reform, and announces a special bonus for U.S. troops. The takeaways ahead.
The House passes the Lower Healthcare Premiums for All Americans Act, which will now make it its way to the Senate as healthcare continues to dominate the agenda.
The U.S. government now admitting responsibility for a deadly crash near Washington, D.C., which killed 67 people. Lawmakers are taking action to tighten air safety rules.
And the U.S. military strikes another alleged narco-terror boat, killing 4. Plus, the House of Representatives block measures that would have required the president to first seek congressional approval before ordering the strikes on drug boats as well as Venezuela.
Billions of U.S. tax dollars meant to support America's Energy Department is funding the Chinese Communist Party's military rise. How lawmakers plan to address this issue.
And with the announcement of Trump accounts for babies and new financial services aimed at children and their parents, we're going to speak with an author and financial services CEO for advice on how to get your teen educated and into the investment game to save for their future.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
I'm Alice Tang, in for Steph. Today is Thursday, December 18th. This is NTD Good Morning, and today's top news. We have President Trump addressing the nation last night, highlighting his administration's economic priorities and addressing a surprise holiday bonus for U.S. service members.
Yeah, certainly a welcome surprise for them. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the key takeaways.
11 months ago,
in a primetime address, President Trump pointed to what he described as major accomplishments since returning to office while previewing his agenda for the year ahead.
I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it. When I took office, inflation was the worst in 48 years, and some would say in the history of our country.
The president displayed charts comparing price increases during the administration of President Biden with what he described as declines since his second term began in January. Under the Biden administration, marked by the COVID-19 pandemic, food inflation surged on average nearly 24%, with grocery staples climbing at similar rates or even higher, such as eggs 238%, coffee 53%, sugar 48%, ground beef 40%, and butter 35%. While food inflation has slowed sharply this year, persistently high food prices continue to impact household budgets. The president also sharply criticized Biden-era policies on immigration, crime, and social issues.
They flooded your cities and towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings. They indoctrinated your children with hate for America. They just released a level of violent felons that we had never seen to prey on innocent.
And said all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants in the year before his election.
Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens.
The president also highlighted his work on prescription drugs.
I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations which were taking advantage of our country for many decades. Your drug costs will be plummeting downward, and I used the threat of tariffs to get foreign countries who would never have done it to pay the cost of this giant dollar reduction.
Trump then teased what he called the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history.
A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. The last administration and their allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants.
Trump said the annual cost of a typical new mortgage rose by $15,000 under Democratic leadership, but has fallen by $3,000 since he took office. He also said he plans to announce a new Federal Reserve chair who supports lower interest rates. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, housing costs nationwide have surged. Median home prices are up 55% and rents more than 35%. According to the National Association of Realtors, a housing shortage is the top driver of affordability problems, with an estimated 4.7 million home shortfall nationwide. President Trump also announced a special bonus for more than 1 million U.S. service members.
Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776.
Trump says the country made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs. In other news, President Trump and War Secretary Pete Hegseth attended a ceremony yesterday to honor U.S. personnel killed in Syria over the weekend by a suspected ISIS attacker. Trump traveled to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware to be present for what the Air Force calls the dignified transfer of the bodies from overseas back into the United States in the presence of their families. 2 U.S. Army soldiers and a civilian interpreter were killed on Saturday in the central Syrian town of Palmyra. The attacker targeted a convoy of American and Syrian forces before being shot dead. Trump called the incident terrible, vowed retaliation, and referred to the 3 that were slain as great patriots. 3 U.S. soldiers were also wounded in the attack. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Staying in Washington, D.C., lawmakers in the House has just passed a Republican plan to bring down the cost of health care without extending subsidies for Obamacare.
Yeah, that's right. Very big tension in D.C. right now on how to get this done, especially because it will expire at the end of the year and those premiums are gonna really pop up. In a separate vote, though, 4 Republicans joined the Democrats to force another vote on the subsidies. And our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more on that.
Now, just for the public knows, when there's a discharge petition and you get 218 votes, which is the majority of the House Democrats, then the bill comes to the floor. We want no obstacles. We want action.
4 Republicans signed on to House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries' discharge petition to force a vote on a bill that would extend for 3 years the COVID-era Obamacare healthcare subsidies.
Even some Republicans agree that action is urgent. All of the speaker's refusal to allow a vote on extending these subsidies idiotic and political malpractice as premiums are poised to rise.
I think these are obviously Republicans who are in swing districts that may be threatened in the midterm election. My prediction is with a sufficient number of Republicans signing on to this that it would pass the House. I don't think the fate in the Senate will be very good, however.
This is the second discharge petition that has been successful in forcing House Republican leadership to put a bill for a vote on the House floor. The other bill that was successful was the bill to release the Epstein files.
I have not lost control. Because there are look, we have the smallest majority in U.S. history. These are not normal times. There are processes and procedures in the House that are less frequently used when there are larger majorities and when you have the luxury of having 10 or 15 people who disagree on something.
Also, the House Judiciary Committee deposed former special counsel Jack Smith. Republicans grilled Smith behind closed doors over the intercepted phone records of 8 Republican lawmakers and the questioned probable cause for the raid on Mar-a-Lago in 2022.
In today testifying before this committee, Jack is showing tremendous courage in light of the remarkable and unprecedented retribution campaign against him by this administration and this White House.
The House passed the Republican proposal to tackle health care. The bill would lower premiums and provide subsidies for low-income families for out-of-pocket health care expenses. The bill is expected to face opposition in the Senate without Democratic support. Also, the Senate passed the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, a $900 billion bill that now heads to the president's desk for signing. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Thank you, Luis. The U.S. government is now admitting responsibility in the deadly midair collision near Washington, D.C. earlier this year.
And lawmakers are tightening aviation safety rules in response. Here's more on that.
In January this year, an American Airlines regional jet collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter near Washington Reagan National Airport. The collision killed all 67 people on board both aircraft. The crash was the deadliest aviation disaster on U.S. soil in more than 20 years. In a court filing responding to the first lawsuit from victims' families, the government's lawyer said the United States breached its duty of care to plaintiffs. The filing says an air traffic controller violated visual separation procedures and Army helicopter pilots failed to properly see and avoid the jet. Investigators say the Black Hawk was flying higher than allowed and pilots may not have realized how high they were due to altimeter failure. The government also acknowledged it knew about dozens of near misses in the same airspace before the crash. The crash has renewed scrutiny on aviation safety in the nation's capital. Yesterday, the Senate unanimously passed the ROTOR Act to strengthen helicopter safety requirements. The measure tightens the rules for military aircraft, requiring them to transmit precise location information to avert future collisions. The legislation also takes out a controversial section in the National Defense Authorization Act. It's a provision that would have expanded a loophole for military helicopters to fly in D.C. without broadcasting their location.
The ROTOR Act now has the explicit backing of the White House. We still have a few small outstanding issues, but I'm optimistic that we're going to get this done and signed into law as soon as next month.
The crash also exposed weaknesses in the nation's aging air traffic control system.
The DCA tragedy and the government shutdown were defining moments for the FAA this year. They exposed vulnerabilities, but they also drove action.
The FAA plans to spend billions modernizing radar and communications by 2028. The National Transportation Safety Board is expected to release its final report on the crash in January.
The son of filmmaker Rob Reiner, Nick Reiner, made his first court appearance since being accused of murdering his parents.
The official cause of death has been released, and the Reiner's children are breaking their silence since the tragic deaths. NTD's Christina Corona has the latest.
We're outside the Los Angeles Superior Courthouse where Nick Reiner made his first court appearance since being accused of killing his parents, Rob and Michelle Reiner. His attorney, Alan Jackson, announced that his arraignment will be postponed to early January, citing complex and serious issues associated with this case.
We ask that during this process you allow the system to move forward in the way that it was designed to move forward, not with a rush to judgment, not with jumping to conclusions, but with restraint and with dignity and with the respect that this system and this process deserves and that the family deserves. So with that, we are set for January 7th for an arraignment.
Nick Reiner, charged with 2 counts of murder, wore a blue suicide prevention vest during his court appearance. The 32-year-old sat behind glass as his attorney appeared before the judge. Reiner was ordered held without bail pending his arraignment. The official causes of death were revealed Wednesday afternoon. According to the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner, Rob and Michelle Reiner died from multiple sharp force injuries. The Reiner's children, Jake and Romy Reiner, are now speaking out about their parents' deaths and their brother's arrests, saying, "Words cannot even begin to describe the unimaginable pain we are experiencing every moment of the day." They go on to say, "The horrific and devastating loss of our parents, Rob and Michelle Reiner, is something that no one should ever experience. They weren't just our parents, they were our best friends." Authorities say Nick Reiner was living with his parents at the time of the killings, but was not home when officers arrived. Investigators say the family attended a holiday party at Conan O'Brien's on Saturday, where a heated argument broke out between Nick Reiner and his father. Police say Nick Reiner later checked into a Santa Monica hotel around 4 a.m. Sunday. By Sunday afternoon, Romy Reiner discovered her parents. Hotel staff told investigators they found blood in the bathtub and on the mattress in Nick Reiner's hotel room. New video shows Nick Reiner inside a Los Angeles gas station moments before his arrest on Sunday. Surveillance footage shows him buying a drink at a narco gas station. After he leaves the store, footage shows law enforcement moving in to arrest him. Nick Reiner is currently being held at the Twin Towers jail facility in downtown Los Angeles. Reporting from the city of Los Angeles, Christina Corona, NTD News.
Staying in California, a gunman is still at large after killing 2 students at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. The police are hoping new images can lead them to the gunman who killed the 2 students.
I want to be clear that this is a person that we would like to speak with. We truly believe, based on the video footage that we have been watching for a few days, they may have relevant information to the investigation. So we're asking the public that you can help us identify who this individual is, as well as the individual themselves sees their picture, please contact the police department.
Police say one of the injured victims was discharged from the hospital yesterday, while another is still in critical but stable condition, and 5 others are in stable condition.
The person of interest police detained earlier in connection with the attack has been cleared.
The shooting killed 2 students and injured 7 others, and they prepared for their final exams on Saturday.
Authorities say this is still a very intense and active investigation, and they're confident that the case will be solved and the shooter caught.
The United States carried out another airstrike yesterday on a suspected drug boat trafficking boat in the Eastern Pacific, killing 4 people.
The military says the vessel was operating along a known narco-trafficking route.
The military says the strike was ordered by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and no U.S. forces were injured.
The military identified the 4 men killed as narco-terrorists, and the strike is the latest in a series of strikes the U.S. has carried out on alleged drug boats, all part of President Trump's campaign to stop drug trafficking into the U.S.
Some lawmakers are calling for these strikes to require congressional approval, but yesterday the House rejected a resolution that would have had that done.
The House also rejected a similar resolution that would have required Trump to seek congressional approval first to then carry out the strikes on Venezuela.
And it comes as tensions with Latin America country continue to escalate, with the U.S. blocking sanctioned oil tankers from going in and out of Venezuela.
And up ahead, millions allegedly paid out while red flags were ignored. Minnesota lawmaker says an indicted fraud suspect is still receiving taxpayer money.
A deadly crash on a Tennessee highway. Now under federal investigation, officials are calling an illegal immigrant with a commercial license was distracted behind the wheel. We'll be back with this after the break. Welcome back to NTD. Fraud allegations continue to roll out of Minnesota. A Minnesota lawmaker alleged yesterday that a man awaiting trial on federal charges continues to collect payments from other government programs.
State Rep. Kristen Robbins told the Fraud Fighting Committee that she chairs, she finds this information very concerning.
We did receive your letter, Inspector General, asking us to share information with you on credible whistleblower reports. And to date, we have not, because there is no trust, as you might understand. This fraud has been perpetuated on your watch, and the whistleblowers who reach out to us within the department are terrified. And they feel that they've been retaliated against already. They feel that they are very afraid. They're afraid to reach out to us. And if they thought we were then turning around and giving it to you, we would not have whistleblowers.
Robbins says a public records researcher uncovered an intertwined web of people and entities allegedly tied to the man with the help of whistleblowers.
She says those connections are still receiving taxpayer dollars for assisted living facilities and adult day services, despite multiple, quote, red flags indicating possible fraud.
Robbins says the revelations show that state agencies are failing to employ the most basic checks and balances to prevent and detect fraud. The defendant, whom Robbins dubbed Person 1, allegedly received $49 million from state-run programs from 2019 to 2024.
He's among 78 people charged since 2022 in the Feeding Our Future scandal. Fraudsters connected to that now defunct nonprofit agency reaped a total of nearly $250 million from the federal child nutrition program after falsely claiming to provide 91 million meals to needy children.
The Department of Homeland Security says that Washington State ignored 2 recent detainer requests for illegal immigrant truck drivers.
According to the department, both suspects were involved in significant crashes, one of which was deadly. NTD's correspondent Jason Blair has that story.
While the Trump administration has been making it a priority to crack down on commercial driver's licenses for illegal immigrants, the Department of Homeland Security reports that Washington State released 2 illegal immigrant truck drivers involved in crashes despite detainer requests from ICE. One being Kamalpreet Singh, a truck driver who was involved in a deadly collision on December 11th. The DHS says that Singh entered the U.S. illegally in 2023 in Arizona and was released into the country. Also stating, quote, according to local reports, on December 11th, Singh failed to decelerate on a freeway in Washington State, striking the rear of another vehicle, pushing it into a third vehicle. The vehicle Singh directly hit caught on fire, and the 29-year-old driver, Robert Pearson, died on the scene. The second illegal immigrant is Juan Hernandez Santos, who is accused of crashing an 18-wheeler into a car, causing a 6-vehicle pileup involving a school bus. On multiple occasions, ICE has said that when detainers aren't honored, federal officers have to pursue the illegal immigrants in the local community, saying, quote, "These at-large arrests are more dangerous for the public, aliens, and officers." Overdrive reports that Tara Tsilana, a spokesperson for the Thurston County Prosecuting Attorney's Office in Washington, says under Washington law, local law enforcement agencies are prohibited from assisting with federal immigration enforcement. She added many jurisdictions from Washington have determined that ICE detainers which are not reviewed or authorized by a judge do not carry the same legal authority as a judicial arrest warrant. Washington's Keep Washington Working Act, passed in 2019, limits how much law enforcement can cooperate with ICE and the DHS. In August, Washington Governor Bob Ferguson defended the state's policies after receiving a notice from the Department of Justice stating Washington could be out of compliance with federal law.
Washington State is proud to be a welcoming community that values immigrants and refugees' contributions to our economy and our cultural fabric. We do so while accounting for and complying with applicable federal law.
Jason Blair, NTD News.
Federal officials say an illegal immigrant with a commercial driver's license allegedly caused a deadly crash in Tennessee.
Investigators say Chinese national Huang Yisong was driving a tour bus on December 9th when he slammed into the rear of a tractor trailer, allegedly distracted by video on his phone.
The crash triggered a chain reaction involving multiple vehicles, killing a total of 31-year-old truck driver Kerry Smith and injuring 2 others.
The DHS says Huang entered the U.S. illegally through Mexico in 2023. He was later released with work authorization and a social security number, allowing him to obtain a commercial driver's license in New York.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem blamed sanctuary policies for putting unqualified drivers on American roads.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said the driver failed an English proficiency test after the crash. And lawmakers are sounding the alarm after an investigation uncovers how the Chinese Communist Party is exploiting U.S. taxpayers to fund its own military and technological rise, including sensitive nuclear technology. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
In the past 2 years, $6 billion worth of research and more than 4,000 papers published within the Department of Energy involved collaboration with Chinese researchers. Half of that research is fueling China's defense and industrial base. Some of the Chinese entities involved are among the leading universities for defense and nuclear weapons research. This is according to a newly released report by the Select Committee on the CCP. The report is not hypothetical, congressional investigators say, detailing hundreds of instances in which Chinese researchers received awards after their collaboration with U.S. researchers led to breakthroughs. For example, collaboration with a U.S. professor helped the CCP in its research into high-yield explosives and Chinese nuclear weapons development. At the same time, lawmakers are pushing legislation to stop Americans from unknowingly propping up CCP entities that threaten U.S. national security. Congressman Andy Barr and Senator John Cornyn leading on the Fight China Act.
We're codifying President Trump's America First investment policy with this legislation, which will stop the flow of capital and know-how into these sensitive technologies that threaten our national security.
The chairman of the China Committee described the situation as deeply alarming and called on the Department of Energy to stop the exploitation and protect hard-earned taxpayer dollars. To address this, lawmakers are calling for tighter rules, like requiring the government to disclose research ties with China. The Department of Energy said it's reviewing the report and vows to ensure the integrity and security of DOE programs. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
A newly announced arms deal between the U.S. and Taiwan is one of the largest ever seen between the two countries.
That's right. The more than $11 billion package includes missiles, rockets, and drones, and it comes after China has been surrounding the island of Taiwan with its own aircraft and ships daily.
China's Communist Party claims Taiwan as part of its own territory and considers its independence a separatist movement. but the small island is still self-ruled and democratic.
U.S. policy is to sell arms to Taiwan, though ties with the nation remain unofficial. Beijing publicly condemned the new arms deal, saying that it will, quote, backfire. Such threats have become par for the course when these types of deals are announced. And the Trump administration says it has collected $1 billion in new tariff revenue after rolling back a key shipping loophole.
That's according to new data from Customs and Border Protection.
The de minimis exemption allowed packages valued at $800 or less to enter into the country completely duty-free.
President Trump first closed the loophole for shipments from China and Hong Kong, and then expanded it worldwide in August.
Customs officials say the change has increased seizures of unsafe and non-compliant goods by more than 80%.
Tariff rates now range from 10 to 50%, depending on where the goods come from.
And U.S. manufacturing activity continued to expand in December, now for the 5th consecutive month, although at a slowing pace as factory job growth jumped to a 4-month high, while new orders for goods sales fell for the first time in a year amid cooling demand. Joining us now to discuss the new report from S&P Global is Jill Homan. She's America First Policy Institute Deputy Director of Trade and Economic Policy. Thank you for joining us, Jill. Appreciate it. Your reactions to this report showing growth is up, but cooling demand with U.S. manufacturing.
Thank you for having me. And I think what we first need to point out is that we've had a record government shutdown, which had implications on the U.S. economy. But in surveys of manufacturing CEOs, what they're expecting is to expand manufacturing over 2026. And then also when you factor in the working family tax cut in the One Big Beautiful Bill, which is the largest tax cut in American history, we expect that that will drive demand over the course of 2026, which will also help translate into more manufacturing revenue to meet that demand.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point because the data is, of course, retroactive, but surveying the CEOs of these companies shows what the trend could be coming ahead. And of course, we know President Trump has through his tariff policy, brought many foreign manufacturers to build here in the U.S., and he's secured all this foreign investment. So what is the timing, though, of that impact so that we are seeing that data come up in these reports?
Well, with the tax relief, again, I'm going to talk about the demand side a little bit. So what we're expecting in the tax relief is come this April, and Americans are going to start to realize and see significant tax benefits. And also when you factor in from the manufacturing side, the no tax on overtime, that will also be significant savings as well for Americans, and more revenue or more wage and after-tax income in Americans' pockets. So what I expect is over the course of the first quarter into the second quarter is Americans on the demand side will be feeling the impacts of the tax relief. And there's already been CEOs that have announced significant expansions. So these are companies that are in the United States already, from Apple to General Electric to General Motors. And my hope is that those plants and those expansions can begin over the course of 2026. What you're also seeing from the Trump administration is efforts around reforming the permitting time, and so trying to do what the federal government can do to get more shovels in the ground as soon as possible, so that companies, when they do make the announcements and they do want to expand anywhere from AI building more facilities to keep up with its demand, all the way to General Motors and meeting the demand that we have, especially when you see gas below $3, it just makes driving great again. And so my hope is that over the course of 2026, and in line with the polling of CEOs, is that they're going to see a more robust 2026 and more investment in manufacturing and manufacturing jobs over the course of 2026. So my hope is by the end of 2026, we'll have significant growth in the manufacturing sector.
Yeah, you bring up a couple of the key ingredients that go into this, right? You mentioned shovels in the ground, and that's just the first step to actually getting these plants up and running so that they can begin to create and then make output. But one part of the report I'd like to get your opinion on It outlines that hiring cooled because of a lack of qualified workers, yet we know that unemployment is almost near 5%. So how do we get those job seekers into those jobs? Is it a skills gap, or are there other dynamics at play?
And that's, interestingly, that was a provision in the One Big Beautiful Bill and the Working Family Tax Cut, is investment in workforce development. And so investing in the reskilling and also in the career and technical training for Americans to be able to fill these jobs. And you made a point at the beginning of the conversation in President Trump's trade deals with our foreign countries. Those have included also investments in expansion into the United States. And so those expansions, and for example, just in President Trump's Asia trip alone that occurred about 2 months ago, he had announced about $2 trillion worth of foreign investment that would be coming into the United States. And that would translate into hundreds of thousands of jobs. And so I think we have a significant need to invest more in workforce development, particularly in the manufacturing sector. And so that's an acute issue today. And we hear CEOs of U.S. manufacturers, for example, Ford CEOs saying they need more workers on their maintenance and repair side. And then as these investments and foreign investments come online, we're going to need even more workers. And so these are jobs that cannot be replaced with AI. And so they're high-paying, often six-figure jobs. And so I think the One Big Beautiful Bill has provisions around workforce development, and that's going to be, I think, a key opportunity for legislation in 2026, as well as what we can do to make sure that we have the American workers prepared as these expansions and manufacturings are taking place.
Yeah, Jill, a lot of what you're describing indicates to me more of a marathon approach than a sprint. A lot of these things, they take time to kick in, but they have, decades-long potential benefits. So what is your overall view of the economy for the first and second half, though, of 2026 as we finish up?
Well, I think we heard the president yesterday talking about what he's trying to do to reverse course of the previous administration. And so with the previous administration, put us on a glide path towards a very dangerous economic outlook for our country. We had across the board wages were down and costs were going up, and it was a very inflationary policies that were leading towards that, and Americans felt squeezed. And so I think the president did a great job of articulating his effort to turn the country towards better economic policies. And we're seeing it in lower gas prices. We're seeing it in lower food prices. And then my hope and what we're also working on at America First Policy Institute is policies around housing and reducing the cost of housing, and how we can reduce the permitting times and time it takes to get shovels in the ground so we can have more homes and more supply for Americans. And so I think all of these will add up to price relief for Americans, so that we have more take-home pay with the tax relief. And then we're also feeling, I think, in a better place economically when we factor in the policies around costs and reducing the costs and keeping the costs from expanding as quickly as they were. So the outlook I see is 2026 is going to be a very robust year. I think Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent spoke about ending 2025 with about 3.5% GDP growth, which is phenomenal when you factor in the government shutdown. And so as we turn the corner into 2026, I think we're going to build upon that momentum. And my hope is that we can grow even faster in 2026.
As they say, from your lips to God's ears, Jill Homan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
A federal judge has ruled President Trump can move forward with his plans for the White House ballroom for now.
The judge denied an emergency request from the National Trust to stop the project, saying it failed to show how the project was causing irreparable harm, and at this point, it's in its lawsuit. The proposed construction of a 90,000 square foot ballroom would be significantly larger than the previous White House renovations.
And the court will revisit the case next year as the lawsuit continues. Coming up, an update on the streaming wars as Warner Bros.Discovery rejects $108 billion hostile takeover bid from Paramount Skydance.
And Hollywood's biggest awards night is moving to YouTube. The Oscars say the move would allow them to expand the global reach of the awards. We're going to have that and more. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Kerry Dunst. If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. President Trump addressed the nation yesterday. He pointed to what he called economic gains since returning to office. Trump also teased what he described as aggressive housing reforms, and he announced a $1,776 warrior dividend for U.S. service members. That's going to be paid before Christmas. Separately, Trump and War Secretary Pete Hegseth attended a dignified transfer at Dover Air Force Base for the U.S. personnel that were killed in Syria. And lawmakers in the House just passed a Republican plan to bring down the cost of health care without extending the subsidies for Obamacare. The bill would lower premiums and provide subsidies for low-income families for out-of-pocket health expenses paid directly to them. It now goes to the Senate, where it's expected to fail without any support from the Democrats. Now, in a separate vote, 4 Republicans joined the Democrats to force another vote on a 3-year clean extension of those COVID-era Obamacare subsidies, where it's expected to also fail in the Senate. And the U.S. government is admitting responsibility in the deadly midair collision near Washington, D.C. that killed 67 people. Federal filings cite air traffic control errors and a faulty altimeter aboard an Army helicopter. The Senate has now passed the ROTOR Act, and that strengthens helicopter tracking requirements and it closes military loopholes. Staying with the Army, the military struck another boat in the Eastern Pacific yesterday, killing 4 alleged narco-terrorists. It's the latest strike in President Trump's campaign to stop drug trafficking into the U.S. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives blocked 2 measures that would have required Trump to seek congressional approval before ordering strikes on alleged drug vessels and as well Venezuela. Those are this morning's top headlines. With that, Alice, over to you.
Thanks for the recap, Carrie. We have Warner Bros.Discovery and has rejected a $108 billion hostile takeover bid by Paramount Skydance. Here are the details.
Warner Bros.Discovery rejected Paramount Skydance's hostile bid on Wednesday. The Warner's board argued Paramount's $108.4 billion offer failed to give adequate financing assurances. The board wrote in a letter to stockholders Paramount had consistently misled Warner Bros. Shareholders. That was about whether its $30 per share cash offer was fully guaranteed or backstopped by the Ellison family, led by billionaire Oracle CEO Larry Ellison. The Warner Bros. Board further said the Paramount offer posed numerous significant risks. It also said it found the offer inferior to the merger agreement with Netflix. The streaming giant agreed to buy Warner Bros. Discovery's TV, film studios and streaming division for $72 billion earlier this month. But Paramount CEO David Ellison followed up with a $30 a share all-cash bid for the whole company. Paramount has argued its offer is stronger than Netflix's and would have a clearer path to regulatory approval. Whoever buys Warner Bros. Would have a big advantage in the streaming wars. They would be purchasing the owner of popular franchises like Harry Potter, Game of Thrones and DC Comics. Paramount and Netflix didn't immediately respond to Reuters' requests for comment.
And a new report says that Meta received a significant number of fraudulent ads from China in 2024 and made billions from them. But the company says it takes measures to prevent scam ads on a global scale. NTD's David Lamb reports.
A Reuters investigation says that Meta was faced with high levels of fraudulent ads from China in 2024. China's authoritarian regime bans its citizens from using Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. But it allows Chinese companies to advertise to other countries on the platforms. As a result, Meta's ad business was booming in China, reaching more than $18 billion in annual revenue in 2024. That's more than 10% of Meta's revenue. But according to the Reuters report, Meta found that almost 20% of that money was coming from ads for scams, illegal gambling, pornography, and other banned content. The company created an anti-fraud team to reduce the ads by half during 2024, also reducing revenue. But then the team was, quote, asked to pause its work and disbanded the China-focused team. Meta spokesperson Andy Stone said the anti-fraud team focused on China was always meant to be temporary and that Mark Zuckerberg didn't order the team's disbandment. Zuckerberg's order to the teams was to redouble efforts to reduce harmful content all across the globe, including in China. Stone said Meta's automated systems over the past 18 months have blocked or removed 46 million ads submitted through its Chinese business partners, usually before users saw them. Senators Josh Hawley and Richard Blumenthal have demanded a federal investigation into the scam ad problem. The report comes as China's Ministry of National Defense is under fire for creating a social media account on X on December 8th. Some users questioned how the authorities can access the platforms when ordinary citizens are prohibited from doing so. David Lamb, NTD News.
Investment guru Ray Dalio announced yesterday that he's following Michael Dell's example to help fund Trump accounts for newborns. There's also an emergence of new investment services to help educate children on financial literacy as well as the merits of long-term investing. Joining us with advice on how to teach your teenagers about investing is Lawrence Sprung. He's the founder of Midland Financial and the author of Financial Planning Made Personal. Larry, good morning. It's good to see you. You often call compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. I love that. So if you start as a teenager, what can that extra head start, that decade or 15 years, look like in terms of planning for retirement?
Yeah, Carrie, that extra 10 or 15 years can be huge. You know, if you start investing as a teenager, it could equate to hundreds of thousands of dollars by having that extra time of compound interest. I'll just give you an example. My son, you know, he has the privilege of me being a financial advisor. So we made a deal with him when he was very young and started working that if he took his working money and put it into a Roth IRA, that we would match and basically give him an equivalent amount of money to live on during the summer. And he did that. And now he's in his early 20s and he has tens of thousands of dollars that he wouldn't have had because he's had this tremendous growth. And he's also interested in investing and understanding the power of saving. So it's very powerful.
That's a very interesting parenting tip right there, folks. So you heard it from Lawrence Sprung from Midland Financial. Be your own kid's 401k matching program. I love that. What a great way to get them going. Now, to get teens comfortable with the basics of investing, what do you recommend?
Yeah, I think it's best to not let them do it on their own. You know, go alongside of them and, you know, have them understand what you're buying, why you're buying it, the importance of diversification. And I would also say this, you know, if you're not in a position, because maybe you're not educated enough to teach them, but you have a financial advisor that you work with, they would be more than happy to sit down with your kids and help educate them. We do that all the time for the families we serve and teach them about those concepts, diversification, not putting all your eggs in one basket, understanding that investing is for the long haul, trading is short-term and like gambling. So they understand these nuances and differences between investing and trading.
So let's pretend we're sitting down. I've got my kid next to me. We're in the room with you. What types of savings accounts are you recommending that are particularly good for teens?
So it depends on where your teenager is in life, right? If they're in the situation that they're working and they're doing some kind of work where they are getting a W-2 wage, typically we would highly recommend them looking at a Roth IRA. Basically, it allows them to put away money into the Roth IRA up to certain limits. That money will grow tax-free. And as long as they take it out, down the road, they're not going to pay taxes on it either, as long as they're following the rules. So it's a way to grow money tax-free, but you do have to have some form of taxable or W-2 income. So if you're babysitting and getting paid cash by the neighbor, that does not work for you. But if you're getting that W-2, it will. And if that doesn't work, you as a family could set up a custodial account or an investment account with them and help make decisions together.
Okay, so let's take the example of the outlier kid. He's an actor or he's a web designer, and he's actually blown out the Roth and he's hit the ceiling. Then what's the next place for the teen to invest?
Yeah, so for them, there are different avenues, and it definitely complicates things if they're making significant dollars and they're under a legal age. In certain states, it's 18, in certain states, it's 21. So that extra income would typically be mandated to go into some type of custodial account that would only be able to be used for their benefit. And then typically the parent is in charge of that account or some type of custodial figure. And then they would sit down and do that together. I think that's a little bit of an outlier, but at the same time, you want to make sure that that money is protected and safe for the child, because ultimately it's their hard work that's contributing to it. But I still think it creates an opportunity that you sit down with them, educate them, and get them learning about investing and saving early on, because those habits early on can really run throughout life.
And Lawrence, we just have about 30 seconds left, but what if your child does want to try to trade some stocks, et cetera? How do you expectation set and risk mitigate?
I think you put some guardrails in place, give them a little bit of money to work that through. Maybe they'll find out that they're really good at it, or maybe they'll find that they're really not. And they also have to understand that there's tax consequences associated with that, whether there are capital gains or capital loss. So there's some educational opportunities there, but I think you have to educate them on the difference between investing and trading. And there's nothing wrong with trading a little bit, but your lion's share of your investments should be investments and not for trading purposes.
Long-term compound interest, the eighth wonder of the world. Always great to talk to you, Lawrence Sprung. Thank you so much.
Happy holidays.
You too. And Hollywood's biggest awards night is moving to YouTube. The Oscars say the move would allow them to expand the global reach of the awards.
Shenyang Performing Arts 2026 World Tour kicks off in France, with performances happening today as Shenyang celebrates its 20th anniversary. We'll be back with that after this break. Welcome back to NTD. We're getting a first look at what's to come with a new documentary about the First Lady, Melania Trump.
Amazon MGM Studios has dropped a trailer for Melania. The doc gives viewers a window into Mrs. Trump's life over a 20-day period as she returns to the White House for a second term with President Trump.
Filming began last December and focuses on her transformation again from a personal to a public figure into the inauguration, and it also aims to provide a rare glimpse into the famously private wife of the president and the couple's relationship.
The upcoming documentary release follows Melania Trump's multi-million-dollar deal with Amazon MGM. She served as executive producer of the project and had editorial control. Melania arrives in theaters on January 30th of next year. Yeah, there's certainly always been a fascination with first ladies. You know, the most famous probably being Jackie Onassis Kennedy or Jackie Kennedy.
Lives.
Yeah, and they wear beautiful clothing. And but yeah, it's very interesting in this modern age where social media, everybody's got a camera in their pocket to get this view into what her private life is. I'm sure people are very curious.
And she must have a fascinating life, being the first American citizen he became the first American citizen. I can't imagine what the documentary would be like. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, she's from Slovenia originally, or at that time it was Yugoslavia, and she met President Trump in New York City. She was a fashion model. Of course, they married in Palm Beach, went on to have one son together, Barron. So yeah, it's certainly fascinating. I think people are very curious. And she had full editorial control, so very much from her perspective. So.
And it's coming out next year, January. We'll be tuned in as we also take a look. And next, Hollywood's biggest awards night could be watched in a very different way in the future.
Yeah, that's right. Let's have a look at that.
And the award for most surprising move in Hollywood goes to the Oscars. YouTube just struck a stunning multi-year deal with the Motion Picture Academy to carry the ceremony. YouTube will take over the rights from ABC beginning in 2029. The Academy said the new partnership will allow them to expand the global reach of the Oscars.
I guess I'll come back next week and say goodbye.
I'm sure they'd appreciate that.
Good morning, Krusty Crew, or should I say, are you ready, kids?
Yeah! SpongeBob SquarePants has cemented his legacy. The beloved animated character put his hands and feet in the concrete forecourt of Hollywood's famed Chinese theater. The voice of SpongeBob, Tom Kenny, was there as well to soak up the glory.
Yeah, it's certainly a sign of the times, right? The parent company of Google is now the broadcasting right of the Oscars, which used to be one of the top broadcasts of the year. Now it's kind of swallowed by live sports. But YouTube has 20 times the reach of Disney Plus. Everybody's got YouTube in their
You just need
on
a
their
laptop.
phone, yeah, or a phone. So you can see why this move will certainly create much more opportunity for global reach with the Oscars.
And now the next question is, what about the Super Bowl? Is that also going to be on YouTube?
Maybe Amazon. It's a great question. Yeah, it's technology companies are kind of eating the world, that's for sure.
And we have Shenyun Performing Arts officially launching its 2026 global tour with Europe as its first stop, mainly Paris, France, as one of the company's groups arrives in there on Tuesday.
And this year marks the 20th anniversary of Shenyun's founding, making its opening performances in France especially noteworthy. Shenyun's steadily growing popularity and consistently sold-out shows in France over the years reflects the strong appreciation that European audiences have for Shenyun. Let's have a look at this report from France.
On December 16th, artists from the Shenyun International Company arrived at Paris's Charles de Gaulle Airport, where they were warmly welcomed by fans cheering, "Welcome Shenyun." As this year marks Shenyun's 20th anniversary, the artists expressed both excitement and anticipation.
I feel very honored and very excited to be part of the first show of the 20th year. And I'm just really eager to show the audience all our hard work that we put in this year and to show what we have for this year.
Honestly, it does feel a little bit surreal because we spend half a year polishing, refining our performance, especially working with the other choreographers and the crew and the production. But as soon as that curtain opens up on the first show, it's like, wow, this is real. Like, this is the beginning of a new journey, a new 2026 Shenyun show.
Through classical Chinese dance and a unique blend of Eastern and Western music, Shenyun artists aim to share hope and traditional values with audiences worldwide.
The main message we want to show to the audience is one of hope and compassion. You know, it's like right now we're living in a very dark times. You know, a lot of hard stuff happening. But then we want to show people that there's still hope in this world, and maybe that hope is Shenyun.
Feeling that traditional values like truthfulness, compassion, tolerance, courage, dignity is still alive and relevant in the world today.
I think when you see this show, you know, you really see that there's a lot of hope. It's very uplifting. Not only is it reviving traditional culture, but it's demonstrating that when you do, you know, good things and follow, you know, an upright path, there are good outcomes to come from that. You know, so it's something very uplifting.
What we portray with Shenyun is a traditional Chinese culture, the real traditional Chinese culture, China before communism, and that is what the CCP is afraid of to have the world see, to see how wonderful and how knowledgeable and great the Chinese people were without this totalitarian government repressing them. A lot of people, I think, they really understand anything that the CCP is against is going to be good, is going to be worth watching. If they're willing to invest their time, energy, and money, this biggest government in the whole world right now, they're spending their time and effort to repress us, then that means we are definitely doing something very, very correct.
Over the years, Shenyun has been warmly embraced by mainstream audiences in France, with performances nearly always selling out. This year, box office results have once again reached new highs. According to the French presenter, performances in 9 cities are already completely sold out. By the end of January next year, all 99 performances across 15 French cities are expected to sell out. Due to overwhelming demand, ticket sales for Shenyun's 2027 season in 10 cities have already opened in advance. On December 18th, Shenyun's 2026 global tour will officially begin in Amityville, France, located in the heart of Europe, before traveling to 5 continents around the world.
And is performing in France today and will begin performing in New York, in the U.S. on December 24th, here in the Lincoln Center in New York City in March. And grab your ticket before it's also ran out.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. 100 performances in France alone. It seems like across all the major cities in France. And as you say, in New York here, performing at Lincoln Center, which is just an amazing performing arts center. If you've never been to Lincoln Center, it's such a wonderful theater.
Yeah.
But also at the Kennedy Center in D.C. and throughout all of North America. So yeah, kudos to Shen Yun on 20 years, NTD being a media sponsor. We're very proud to highlight some of their milestones, and good luck to them as they kick off their new season.
Yeah, grab your ticket on shenyun.com. And before we end, we have a special programming note. NTD Evening News and Capitol Hill Report will be hosted live from America Fest 2025 in Phoenix, Arizona, today and tomorrow.
It's Turning Point USA's first major conference since the assassination of the organization's founder, Charlie Kirk.
NTD's Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer will be on the ground to bring you real-time coverage and in-depth interviews. And we'll have live special coverage of all 4 days of the event, starting from December 18th to 21st. That's today to Sunday. Don't miss it.
And if you have any feedback on our show or there's a story you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com. We would love your feedback.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. I'm Alice Tang.
I'm Carrie Dunst. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Don't miss our special coverage of Turning Point's biggest event of the year, America Fest 2025.
This is the greatest nation on earth.
Thousands of students expected to attend the 4-day event, joined by some of the most influential voices in the conservative movement, all to honor Charlie Kirk and the principles he stood for. Watch our special coverage of the convention and our on-the-ground editions of NTD Evening News with Tiffany Meyer at 6 p.m. Eastern and Capitol Report with Steve Lance at 7. Turning Point USA, America Fest 2025, this Thursday through Sunday on NTD.